All right, so this should be interesting. I wasn't sure if I was going to record this video, but I brought this up on stream and a few people seem interested. So I figured let's test this out. Let's record one, and I guess we'll find out if people enjoy this by the views, or maybe you guys leave some comments down below if you like this. And we're going to go over an investor relations document that was sent out by Krafton Company, Krafton Corp, which are the makers of PUBG, or it's really the company, the holding company behind PUBG now. And the reason why this is interesting is because in these documents that PUBG creates, which we're going to explain kind of what this is, they will usually give out information about the company and also about the future of the company. And those are questions that a lot of people in the PUBG community are interested in, right? Like, what's happening? Is PUBG 2 coming out? Are there new games coming out? What's PUBG's idea for the future? And PUBG is kind of famously quiet about this kind of stuff. But now that PUBG/Krafton they're a public company in Korea, they are going on the Korean Stock Exchange. They're going to have to put out quarterly and annual documents kind of going over and disclosing how much money they're making, what they're working on, and all that stuff. Not everything. Companies still keep certain things private, but they do kind of have to let investors know what they're working on. And then this document here is one of those documents, investor relations. And then this specifically was from a meeting. They disclosed here that they had a meeting with a bank, Credit Suisse, on October 6th, and they used this document and that they disclosed this voluntarily. So I used to work in the financial field for 7 years, and I used to go over these kind of investor relations documents on basically a weekly basis. And so I'm pretty familiar with looking through these. And I mean, anybody can find this online. It's just that sometimes, if you don't know where to look, or a lot of people might not be aware of this if you didn't work in that field. And I always like looking through this. And even as an investor myself, I like to invest in the stock market. You always have to look through these documents to understand what the company is working on, and the future. At the minimum, you should be, looking at those kind of things. So we're going to go through this quickly. A lot of this stuff will be like dry and boring, but some of this stuff is interesting. We're going to see some information about, what PUBG has planned for the future. It's pretty amazing. And just a quick background. So, Krafton is the holding company behind PUBG now. And really, they're in an interesting spot because PUBG is really their main moneymaker. It's really the only way they make money. I think 90% of their revenue is from PUBG, PC, mobile, everything combined, right? Just the PUBG brand. But really, Krafton is trying to become like an Activision Blizzard, where you have the publisher on top, which helps kind of fund the studios, publishes the games. Back in the day, did all the distribution of the discs and stuff like that. Now everything's mostly like digital, but there's basically like the publisher above it, and then you have the studios underneath. So that's what Krafton's working on right now. So now they have like Striking Distance Studios, which is going to be putting out the Callisto Protocol. They have PUBG Studios, which is working on PUBG related stuff. They just bought, I think it's called like Unknown Productions, which made that Subnautical game. They just purchased them this week. So that's all going to be under the Krafton umbrella. And then they publish games out of that, kind of like how there's called Activision Blizzard. And then you have like Sledgehammer Games. You have, Blizzard that makes World of Warcraft, all the other things, kind of like EA games. And then you have DICE that makes Battlefield, and then you have like EA Sports, or the different studios that are underneath. I'm kind of blanking on some of the names there, but that's kind of how the video game industry works. So here we go. This is Krafton. They have a little disclaimer here about it, and we're going to get into their vision. This is basic stuff, right? Like we can skip this, just their vision, how, why, how, and what, who we are. Okay, we know that this is PUBG, the Battlegrounds. We are an IP owner. They own the IP, a developer, also a publisher, and a service provider. We know that. And then here's where we get into some stats. So they're trying to explain to Credit Suisse, which is a bank, what makes their game unique, what their game is all about. And obviously they want to present to banks because they want to show that they're a good company. You should lend us money so that they can use that in future endeavors and stuff like that. So they're explaining here what the game is all about. If you play PUBG, you already know about this, but it's funny, they're explaining to someone that doesn't understand the game. So they're saying like, we are realistic, battle and survival based on game decisions. And, in the solo version of the game, free for all, you have a 1% chance to win. So it's kind of like they probably talked about here, like how the addictive nature of the game, that you want to try to win and you have a low chance of winning. So it keeps people coming back for more and more. Here they talk about PUBG being a blockbuster hit across the developed and emerging market. The game reached #1 in 90% of 174 countries serviced globally. So you can see here countries where PUBG has reached number one. I guess they're saying here in Europe, every single country in Europe, it hit number one. In Africa, is this true? I mean, I'm curious here. I guess this is amongst all the games, including mobile. But so you have Middle East. I'm not sure what CIS stands for. Southeast Asia and Oceania. In Latin America, 97% of the countries. And then in Americas, in the North Americas, they didn't even show any statistics. So I thought that was interesting. It says here that this is based on App Annie data, highest ranking downloads in 174 countries where PUBG has been serviced, either iOS or Android. Okay, so this is strictly mobile they're talking about here. I thought it was everything, but it's just mobile. Interesting information. That we have beyond a genre-defining title that reshaped the gaming industry. Number one PC game, best-selling PC game of all time, 67 million copies sold, 75 million including console. Number one mobile game, worldwide gross revenue in 2020. Number one downloads in 150 countries, and 1+ billion downloads cumulative as of March 2021. I mean, those are really impressive numbers. I've seen PUBG post these numbers before, 75+ million copies sold, including console. That's just unbelievable. And you guys might have seen there's been some viral videos like on Instagram and TikTok of like number one video game sales ever. And PUBG's like in the top 5. It's like Tetris, Wii Fit or whatever Wii, what was it that came with like Wii Bowling, the thing that came with Wii, that's like really high. It's like the Mario games, and it's like PUBG is right there. So it's pretty wild. Obviously, Fortnite and other games don't count on those lists because you don't have to pay for those games. Then we have who we are, games as a service. So they're talking here about games as a service now, that this isn't like where they made PUBG 1, PUBG 2, PUBG 3. Every year there's a new Call of Duty. What they have done is they've taken the game as a service approach where, you know, every few months and every year they're updating new content. So they show here all of their releases so far. They have the new modes and then collaborations with brands. So you see the Suicide Squad, Blackpink, Sun, the Korean soccer player that I think he plays in the UK. This is Ground Zero, the actor from Korea. Kakao Friends, I don't know what that is. I tried Googling it. But yeah, as you guys might, recognize some of that stuff. And now Hyundai. And then here's interesting. This is what I've talked about a few times. This is where they say Kiki is scheduled for 2021, which is going to be the newest map in PUBG, codename Kiki. And there's some speculation that this could be getting delayed, but this was just presented in October, October 6th. So basically a month ago now, almost a month ago, and it still has that data. So, they might have, in the presentation, they might have let people know like this is going to be delayed now, or maybe, this wasn't a major topic, but it does say scheduled for 2021, but we'll see. In the developer post that they put out, they mentioned end of the year, possibly early 2022. So it could be either or. This is just a rough estimate, right? So we'll see, but it is interesting to see that again. And then they talk about here kind of the life cycle of the game and how they're kind of using regular fans and the esports viewer. So they're saying like the players, trying to get the regular players or the core fans to become esports viewers, and then esports viewers kind of become fans. It is kind of true. Like I was a regular player. Now I become kind of more into esports, and then it kind of like reinforces me being a player, right? So, and it kind of enhances the life cycle right here. So that's what they're talking about here. So they're just presenting that in the meeting. Then they go to show that here is what they've done for the esports world. And in 2020, a bunch of the PCS competitions, and now the PUBG Global Invitational, which is happening soon in 2021. If you guys are in esports, I'm sure you're familiar with that. And then here they get into what made it possible. So if you guys aren't familiar with this, PUBG was established in 2007, and they had a game called Terra, which they're saying here, they set a new standard in an MMORPG with non-targeting combat system. But basically, from my knowledge, I had never heard of Krafton, and there was some articles recently about the coders, the one developer who was like a prodigy developer that worked for PUBG, or maybe still does. And, he had been unsuccessful in many endeavors, and really until he teamed up with Brendan Green and they launched PUBG, which the story is history. It wasn't until then that he became like a hit or successful in this field. So they show here that 2007 PUBG really, the Krafton company, Blue Hole, they really take off with PUBG. And then, interesting, they don't really show because I guess they're just counting mobile and everything in that. Then they're showing that next is New State, which now has been set for, I think, November 11th. And then, they're highlighting a major event here as the Callisto Protocol 2022 planned. to set a new standard for the survival horror game genre. And this is being done by the Striking Distance Studios, which we'll see. I think they mentioned it here in a little bit. And then they go, who made it possible? These are all the different offices from around the world. So most of these are PUBG studios around the world. And like I told you guys, now Striking Distance is another studio. So what they did is they kind of, now they're saying Krafton, they're making PUBG Studios its own thing. And then you have Striking Distance Studios. So they have a location in Spain. And then I know they have a location in San Ramon. And then it looks like they might have one part of the office in Madison, which is one of the PUBG studios in Madison in the US, in Wisconsin. So you can see different areas across the world there. And obviously PUBG headquartered in South Korea. And then who made it possible? So some recognizable names here, two that I'm aware of. Dave Kurd became the creative director after Brendan Green left. That was Brendan Green's title, the creative director of PUBG, and created the whole genre. And then that was taken over by Dave Kurd, who used to work at Call of Duty. And then they brought in Glenn Schofield, however pronounce his last name. And he, I'm pretty sure, works in the San Ramon office in California. And he worked previously on Call of Duty and Dead Space. So now he is the CEO of the Striking Distance Studios and is working on Callisto Protocol. And then some other names here that I'm not familiar with. I did see a press release when they hired Kevin Lin, who worked for Twitch. So it's cool to have that for them. It's cool to have a connection with somebody that worked at Twitch, right? Because he has probably connections at Twitch and knows how that works, which is good. You need to kind of know about streaming and stuff like that and that community to help grow your business now in the gaming world. So some other people here. Then who made it possible? Talent. So this is interesting. You know, a lot of people always say that, you know, why doesn't PUBG just fix the game? Well, it's really hard to hire development and talent and developers, I should say, and talented workers. And a lot of them are already working for Call of Duty, for EA, for all these other companies, Take-Two, working on Grand Theft Auto, working for Blizzard. I mean, this is a very competitive industry, and Krafton being kind of a new kid on the block in terms of like big corporate companies, it's up for them. So they said that in 2021, they had the largest ever recruitment drive to find the best talents with industry leading compensation levels. And that's because they need people. And they actually, I was on a PUBG call and they talked about this. And just disclosure here again, like I'm partnered with PUBG from a streamer perspective, but I do not work for PUBG, but I have been able to talk to some of the management and developers there, which has been a great experience. And then next, moving on, is what made it possible. This is what they're talking about. PUBG New State here. They're talking about graphic rendering. I think we can skip this, but let's just read the overall thing here, that they have the best-in-class mobile game development capabilities amid heavy reliance on Chinese developers for most AAA games in mobile transition. So talking here about what they're doing for the platform servers, anti-cheat, CPU and GPU optimization. Again, this is out of my expertise completely. I will just say that it is amazing where mobile gaming has come. It looks really good now. It's absolutely insane and definitely is kind of part of the future of gaming. I don't know. I still don't like to play on mobile, but it definitely is the future for a lot of regions. Then we have the future we envision. Despite its short history, game has become the largest entertainment segment. And this is true. I mean, gaming has completely dominated the entertainment industry. It's bigger than the movie industry now. There was a Wall Street Journal article about this recently. A lot of people were actually mentioning this to me, like in my family. They're like, I can't believe, so many people sleep on gaming still. For us as gamers, we don't, but people in the Wall Street world still sleep on gaming as being such a big industry. I'm telling you guys, I worked in it firsthand. I was telling all the people I worked with, I'm like, NVIDIA, AMD, all these companies are going to be so big for making chips, also for crypto stuff. But like even Activision, Take-Two, all these companies are so undervalued for so long. They make so much money. And we're seeing here, gaming in 2020, $175 billion industry when the movie industry is $56 billion. I mean, this is just absolutely wild. And it's only going to keep growing as gaming becomes more and more popular and also kind of like culturally acceptable. Then we have, as a mainstream content with 2.8 billion global users, game is ever expanding its presence. Absolutely. They're showing here how gaming is going up and how many people are, the trend of watching gaming and also gaming are just going up. They have a quote here that gaming has always been the backbone of YouTube since founded, and just massive amount of hours that are watched per year. I think they're saying 50 billion hours watched for gaming content on YouTube per year. It's mind-boggling. And then another part of the future that PUBG envisions here is what they're going to do with the company. This is where we're going to start getting into what they're working on in the future here. So they have their IP, which is intellectual property. intellectual property. Say that again. So they have here that they want to build up in terms of shows, series, movies, novels, webtoons, comics, esports. So they want to take the PUBG brand. And this, I mentioned this in stream, you know, people think PUBG, like they don't care about PUBG or PUBG's dead. Absolute opposite. The whole entire company here, which is worth $20 billion, is and growing, is kind of doubling down or quadrupling down or 10 timesing down on PUBG, and they're turning this stuff into movies, novels, everything. Will it work is the question. I think it definitely will, at least partially. And then they also want to do this with other games. So they're going to make more games, and then hopefully in the PUBG universe, and then also outside of the PUBG universe and other IPs that hopefully will work. But again, you know, their only success so far is with PUBG. So this is a major investor concern. And actually, before PUBG went live on the Korean stock market, it was going to be one of the biggest companies to ever go live on the stock market in Korea. And then the valuation dropped because of the concern with kind of PUBG Krafton being a one-hit wonder right now. Since then, the company's kind of gone back up and then kind of steadied out a little bit, plateaued. But it definitely is a huge concern. And honestly, as someone that, you know, I've invested in a lot of video game companies, tech companies, I don't know if I would invest in PUBG just yet. I kind of want to see them be more open with what they're doing in the future and have a little bit more success with a different product, because I think just relying on new state is a little risky, in my opinion. So here we go. This is kind of the timeline. So PUBG 2017, new state 2021. They're going to work on some webtoons, short animations, Callisto Protocol in 2022. Then you have graphic novel, webtoon, more things going on. Then we have Project Cowboy, which we've seen some people leak and talk about online. This is planned for somewhere after 2022, maybe 2023. And then at the very end, we have Project Titan, which again, we've heard about, but that's it, just the name. So what does that mean? Is Project Titan going to be something in the future with Callisto Protocol in space? Is this a code name for PUBG 2? Nobody knows yet. And it's interesting, you know, PUBG might have disclosed some of this stuff to some investors or banks or some people in the financial industry, probably with a disclosure agreement, or maybe they haven't mentioned this at all yet and they're keeping it close to the chest. I mean, it's up to them. But, you know, somewhere out there, people at PUBG know what that is, and it should be interesting. And then here's something new IP that PUBG is working on. So I read about this. They're taking a Korean fantasy novel that was released in 2003 with a unique story of 4 tribes, kind of like, I can't remember. I read an article about this and I'm blanking on it right now, but there's basically, it's a story that is like an old story, like, I don't want to say childhood story, but you know, there's like folklores in different cultures. This is a Korean folklore story with different, I don't know if these are gods or different, like they're saying tribes, but they're going to go for this for a new IP. But again, will this be something that's only popular in Korea? Is this going to be a worldwide hit? Not really sure, but that is something that they're spending their money and time on, is building this IP. And then moving down, I wish I could remember that article, but you guys can Google it if you're interested in learning more about that game they're working on. Then we have studios focused on development based on creative identity, while Krafton provides publishing, tech, business support. So they're showing the individual studios now. They have Bluehole, which made Terra the original company, PUBG Studios, Rising Wings, Striking Distance. This might be, I think Rising Wings is a mobile company that they purchased that makes some mobile games, King series. Yeah, PUBG Krafton actually owns a few mobile games that are very popular. Outside of like the regular, you know, battle royale genre. Then they have Dream Motion. And then like I mentioned, I think earlier in this video, that they just purchased another gaming studio that made the Subnautica game that just happened this week. So and you know, they'll be expanding this as the company continues to grow, hopefully for them. And that's obviously their goal, being on the stock market now. Then we have, I think we can skip this, kind of just the culture, what they're doing here at the company. Ready to provide global direct publishing, marketing, publishing, regional business. There's strategies there. I think we can skip that. Talking here about game as interactive media, in-game currency, content, universe character. We can skip over all this stuff. Here they're talking about how they think that, you know, more people are going to be spending with. This is kind of getting to like metaverse talk, and also deep learning, and how people, with the advancement of technology, people will be maybe working less and spending more time in leisure activities, leading to more gaming, which could be true. go on to talk about the metaverse a little bit more, where, you know, people will be almost kind of like Ready Player One, like kind of living in the game, I guess, or more virtual reality type stuff. And this is a virtual friend potentially, where there will be more interactive dialogue with, you know, deep learning technology and smart AI, which is interesting. Still think we're a little bit a ways from that being like really popular. And then here's something, man, I wish we could have maybe showed this earlier on in the beginning. As we get to the end here, they're just showing some data, some key performance and numbers here from their company. So they show, I've seen some different numbers here, but as of this was created in September, they had 32 million pre-registers for New State, 60 million basically global daily active users playing PUBG. But I wonder again, like what exactly that is for everything. Or is this for Battlegrounds Mobile India? I'm not really sure. Or no, they're saying 50 million registered users for Battlegrounds Mobile India. And they show their growth year over year and quarter on quarter there for PUBG Mobile. And again, this stuff we're kind of getting into the weeds of just like, you know, how they're making money. And also this is displayed in Korean, forget their currency name. It's not, it's a Korean won. I forget, but these numbers are not in USD when you're looking at this stuff. So we're just going to kind of skip over revenue breakdown. If you want to get into the nitty gritty, you can like look at that stuff and their expenses and how much they pay for marketing, just typical business stuff there. Here, they're another kind of chart where they're talking about, you know, how they're making money and strengthening their user engagement with different expertise in live ops. So here they're talking about like they're trying to expand the universe, keep fresh with new updates, in-game monetization. So they're literally talking about the weapon system upgrade, or the weapon, what do they call this? There's a name for this. The weapon skin upgrade system, which, you know, is as a fan of PUBG, I'm all for them making money. And I get microtransactions, but the WSUS system is wild in PUBG. Just costs way too much money to level these guns up. But that is something that, you know, they're putting on their investor report. So they're probably saying we're making X amount of money, a percentage amount of money off this. And it's definitely big enough for them to include it on here as part of their strategy. And again, here's another thing where it says Kiki coming in December 2021. Then they show, this is pretty interesting, the downloads or registration for PUBG New State. So you can see here, the Americas, all of the Americas consist of 17.2%. And just Southeast Asia is 20%. So Southeast Asia beats all of the Americas in mobile download. And I think that shows two things here. Number one, mobile gaming is just so much more popular in Asia and the Middle East. And also, that the battle royale genre or PUBG is so much more popular in these areas. It's absolutely crazy. And I always tell people like PUBG is such a big game in Asia and the Middle East, especially because of mobile. But in America, it's just not as much. And you can see the numbers there. It's just absolutely insane. So basically between the Middle East and all of Asia, you're accounting for 40 plus 27, 67% of the registrations. You know, that's absolutely crazy, man. That's just nuts. Am I even doing that math right? Yeah, 20, 40, 67, roughly, right? So amazing numbers there from that region. Then they're showing here status as a national game in the fastest growing India and MENA region. There we go. Fifth largest economy is India. Number one in gross revenue. They're showing the amount of data here. Downloads, 270 downloads, 40% of total smartphone users have downloaded PUBG Mobile in India. It's insane. And they're showing here the initial success of the most iconic game in quotation marks in India. Number one app, 270 million downloads, 17 million average daily active users, 17 million daily active users. Incredible. And then obviously that's why when PUBG Mobile got banned in India, which is a topic for another video, they wanted to remake that as quick as possible for the Battlegrounds India to get back in there into that market, because it's just such a big market for them. And then they have a summary of the financial statements at the end. So there you go. So that's some of the information that they're presenting here, is that, you know, when they're doing this presentation, they're probably talking about like, look at how big these games are in these regions, how much money we're making. And, you know, there's kind of two things going on here. New State is, you know, has its own page. So they're really focusing on this. Obviously, it's a new game coming out. So this is going to be huge for them in terms of that. And also they're making this by themselves. So previously Tencent had helped them make PUBG Mobile. So Tencent being a Chinese company, It's taking a portion of their profits. So now every time they make money in New State, it will go to PUBG and they don't have to share that with Tencent. But also something that's crazy is any kind of microtransactions that's done on Android or iOS, I know Apple takes like 30%. So they still get 30% taken out. So before they were getting 30% taken out by the operating system and then also some from Tencent, I would imagine. So now they'll be making more money off that. Hopefully it's still as popular. And New State does look pretty interesting, kind of mixing the current state of PUBG also with a little futuristic vibe. And then also talking about like Krafton as a whole, making new content for different regions. Callisto Protocol, which is, you know, seems like it's going to be more of like a console PC game. So they have two different kind of strategies going on. The mobile and kind of Asian, Middle Eastern market, which is very dominant for them. And then also Krafton expanding as a giant video game publisher itself and owning other video game content, diversifying themselves and trying to survive into the future. But the big question for the normal PUBG fans out there is what's going on with PUBG? Is PUBG 2 coming? What is Project Titan? I'm trying to find it. Is that going to be something that we're interested in? And yeah, I guess we'll find out more. But again, because PUBG now and Krafton are on the Korean Stock Exchange, we're going to hear more during their annual report. That's usually when companies give out like the most information about what they're going to be doing for the upcoming year. And then each quarter, they'll be giving out some kind of documentation like this, a quarterly report where they might give out some information or be doing investor relation meetings where they'll be posting new reports just like this, new presentations. So again, if you made it this far, I would love to hear if you guys would invest in Krafton. That would be great to A, know your opinion on that, and B, also know that you guys made it to the end of the video. And if you would like to see some more stuff like this in the future, let me know. If you thought this was extremely boring, well, you probably didn't make it this far, but I'd definitely like to hear down in the comments below. As always, thank you all for watching. I'm Blitz5, and peace out.